goal of this video is to set up an animation blueprint so that when we're creating actions in our game, our player will actually follow suit with a corresponding animation. Let's dive right into this and get to work. The main event and where we're going to be doing all of our work today is going to be within animation blueprints. So we're going to right click in our content browser, go into the animation subsection, and go and click on animation blueprint. Once chosen, you need to choose what mannequin you're going to be animating on. And in this case, we're going to be animating on our default skeleton, the SK mannequin. Once that's created, we can give this a name, which I'm just going to call Dino Anim for Dinosaur Animations. Let's open that up. So let's give a little overview about what we see on our screen right now. In the top left-hand corner, there's this preview page so that when we're actually setting up our animations, we're going to be able to do testing to see if our transitions are working the way we want them to. In the bottom left, we have the My Blueprint folder, which allows us to set up normal blueprint stuff, such as functions or variables, if we need them and if they're necessary. In the top right, there's the regular details panel, and it's always context specific, so depending on what you're selecting, it will show the details for that object. And in the bottom, we have the asset browser, which will show us all of the available animations we have for this skeleton. And then in the middle, we have our blueprint. If I go and drag out an animation here and then connect it to our output pose and then compile this, it will now go and display the output pose that we've connected. Now you will see that it does stop moving, but that's because we haven't looped it and there's no point in us looping it yet. So let's move on to how we're going to control the animation that's playing. The easiest way I've found to control this for simple projects is to create what's known as a state machine. So we're going to right click in our blueprint and we're going to search for state machine. Underneath the animation section, there'll be this little state machine object here, and we're going to put that in and we're going to plug this into our result. So now we have a new state machine that's going to be able to drive our output pose. How do we edit the state machine? Well, we're going to double click on the state machine, and that's going to bring up our state machine's blueprint. This is entirely separate from the animation graph, but the animation graph is simple. It's just saying that do what the state machine tells us to do. Now, this little entry node here just means what should happen by default. So what is our default state? Well, the default thing we're going to be doing is running across the screen. So we're going to right click and hit add state, and we're going to call this run. So if I drag from entry to run, we are saying that when our animation starts, we are going to go into our run state. So now we have to set up what animation actually plays when we're running. So we can double click into our run state, and that's going to bring up another blueprint specifically for our run state. We can see here that we're going to set the output animation pose with a certain animation. If I go into my asset browser, I'm going to choose the run forward option, and I'm going to drag that in, and I'm going to connect these now. So now if I hit compile, we can see that our character is going to be running, but they only run as long as this frame or as this animation is playing. If we want our animations to loop, we need to go into the details for this specific animation and scroll until we find the loop animation boolean and make sure that is set to true. Now if we compile this, we can see that we're going to continue to run and the animation is just going to continue to push. Let's pause that to avoid some distractions, and now we're going to go to our hierarchy here and we're going to click back to our new state machine to go back to our state machine. To quickly address this little pink thing in case anyone out there is confused, this just means that this is the state that was active for 7.5 seconds while we were in our last test. It actually has no impact on what we're doing setting up the states, so that's nice. So now with our default setup, we're good to set up our other states. And in our game here, we have 3 things that we're directly concerned about: our jumping, crouching, and death, respectively. We're going to start with crouch since it's the most straightforward. So let's right click and create a new state. And we're going to call this state crouch. As with before, if we double click into crouch, we're now going to be able to set the animation. Going through our asset browser, there should be a crouch walk here, so let's try and find it. And I'm going to take the crouch walk forward with the rifle on the hip. Connecting that up, we now have a crouch animation that is set to our crouch state. Now we just need to worry about transitioning from our run state to our crouching state. So we're going to say that these two are connected by dragging off of one state and into another. So if I want to say that we are connected from run to crouch, I will go from run and drag to crouch. That sets up this little arrow, which is a transition state. And since we do know that crouch is also connected to run, we are also going to drag from crouch back to run to say that this is bi-directional. So what is going to control our transition from running to crouching? We're going to need to create a variable that is going to dictate whether or not we're transitioning or not. So on our left-hand side here, we're going to scroll down to variables and we're going to hit the little plus button to add a variable that I'm going to call is crouching. With is crouching created, I'm going to go and compile so that I can access my variable. And with that compiled, I can go into the top right for details, scroll down so I can see this default value, and make sure it's set to false because by default, I'm not going to be crouching. With the variable set up, we're now going to set up the transition. If I click in on the little circle or on the transition itself, we will go into another blueprint. So we can see here we're going from run to crouch. So based off of our is crouching variable, we would want to say that if we are crouching, or if is crouching is true, we are able to enter into this transition. Clicking back into our state machine and going into the other transition now, we want to do the opposite. So we'll drag in our is crouching variable, and now we're going to say if we're not crouching. So we're going to drag off of our Boolean here, and we're going to look for something called not. So if our Boolean is not, then we're going to enter the transition. So this is saying that if we are not crouching, then we can enter our transition to go from crouch back to run. So now if we go back to our state machine here and I go and hit compile, if I click on this class defaults here, it will bring up all of our variables that we've created so far in our details panel here for testing purposes. So if I start running here, everything seems to be looking good. Now if I go and toggle is crouching to true, we can see that we go into a crouch. Now, as with our run before, we need to actually go and set this to loop. So let's quickly go back into our crouch, click on our animation, scroll down and hit loop animation so that if we're in this state for longer than a couple seconds, we will continue to loop and stay crouched instead of just pausing dramatically. So we can compile and save those changes and go back to our general state machine. So now we have a variable that tells us when we can transition from run to crouch. We actually need to access our code or our other blueprints in order to make sure this happens dynamically while we're playing our game. To do that, we're going to go into the event graph on the top here, and we're going to set up another blueprint. In this event graph, we have two things by default. We have the event blueprint update animations event, and then we have the try get pawn owner. The pawn owner is set to the owner of this animation blueprint, or that will be wherever you put this. And then this event basically is called to see if we need to be updating animations. So dragging off of our event here, we are going to search for our is crouching variable, and we want to set the value of is crouching. How do we want to set the value of is crouching? Well, if you're like me and using the default a character methods, then we actually have an easy way to do this. Off of our trying to get the pawn owner, if that succeeds, I want to get the movement component. If we get the movement component, we're going to have access to the same methods that we've been using to set up our movement thus far. And there is a really handy method that tells us if our character is crouching. And if we pull off of our movement component here, we can search for is crouching. And then we can go and set this return value to be our is crouching variable in our animation blueprint. So readjusting this blueprint for prettiness here, we can now see that we have set our animation variable is crouching to be equal to the Boolean value that is returned if we check if our player character is currently crouching in the world. Perfect, one of our things is done. We're now going to go and set up our jumping. Back into our new state machine, we are now going to set up our jump. We're going to need two different states for this. The first state we're going to create is going to be called starting jump. And then the second state we're going to make is jumping. And the reason for this is when we start jumping, there's that initial animation with the oomph where the arms swing up, and then there's the general falling animation where they just kind of exist in space. So our transition is simple. We're going to go from run to the start of our jump. We're going to go from the start of our jump to the general jumping animation, and then we're going to go back from jumping all the way back to run. So let's quickly go and assign our animations, and then we'll set up the transition. jump is going to be the start jump that I'm using. And going into the general jumping, let's look for something that's falling. We can see here we have the fall loop. That'll be perfect for our purposes here. Going back to our general state machine, we're now going to talk transitions for this jumping. Just like before, we're going to need a Boolean variable that's going to keep track of this. So let's scroll on our left-hand side and add a new variable that we're going to call is jumping. Once again, let's compile that here, so that we can set the default value and ensure that it's set to false. So now we're going to go into our transition from run to the start of our jumping. We're going to go into that, and we are going to set that to be, if we detect that we are jumping, we are going to be able to enter this transition. That looks good there. So going back here, we're now going to set up the transition that happens from jumping over to run. And that, of course, is going to be the inverse of what we just did, which is if we're not jumping. So let's get our jumping variable and do like we did before, pull off, get the logical not Boolean, and then connect that so that if we are no longer jumping, we can enter the transition to go back to a run. Now from here, if we compile and then hit play, we can go into our class defaults and see what happens if we hit is jumping. We go up, but we never actually enter this jumping animation. So why are we never entering into our jumping animation? Well, that's because there's nothing telling us to take this transition path. And this will sometimes happen where you want to have a start of an animation to go into a general animation once you're done. There is a pre-built functionality for this. If we go in and click on the transition details for the transition between start jump and jumping, we can find a rule right here called automatic rule based on sequence player in state. If we set this to true, this is basically saying once the previous animation is done, you can take this transition and go to me, and I will take you where you need to go. So let's compile and save this here, and now let's go and do another test. Pressing play and then pressing jump, we're going to see here that we go from run, we did our start jump as expected, and now we are in jumping where we are hovering dramatically. Now, as with everything else I've forgotten to do this lecture, what we're going to do is we need to go and set this fall loop to actually loop. And now if we continue to play, now if we compile and run this test back, we will see that we are going to stay in this fall loop now. And when I go to my class defaults and turn off is jumping, we're going to see that we go back to run as expected. So now with the logic and everything looking good, we got to go back into our event graph to set up the real pull from our data. So much like we did before, we're going to pretty much take the same approach. First, we're going to pull off of our previous set and we're going to set another variable, and this time it's going to be our isJumping variable. And the best way to know if our character is jumping is to check for a Boolean that already exists off of our movement component called isThePlayerFalling. So let's drag off of this here and look for isFalling. Then we can set the return value of this to be our isJumping variable, which now says that as long as our player is not falling, our character can't be jumping. Now we can make this a little bit prettier to look at by double clicking on our little line here. And after double clicking, I'll have a new node that I can drag to make this line a little prettier. And I'll double click again right here and then drag this down as well so that the line and sequence is a little bit easier to see. So now we can compile and save, and now we have successfully set up both the crouching and the jumping. Back into our state machine we go. Now we are going to set up our final state, which is the death state. Right click, add state, call this one death. Now with death created, what's going to transition to death? That could come from the run node, it could also come from the crouching node, and it could also come from our jumping node, depending on when our player gets hit. They're all going to have the same transition, but they all have to have the transition line to account for it. So what's this going to look like? Well, we're going to create a new Boolean variable. So we can go down to our variables here, and we're going to create a new one called isDead. Now with the setup ready, we're going to go into death and we're going to choose a fun death animation. And there's just something about a T-pose that sounds like a funny death animation to me, so I'm just going to make that my death animation here. And now we're going to set up all of our transitions. Starting with run to death, we can go in and we're going to bring in our isDead variable, and if our player is dead, we are going to enter the transition. We're now going to repeat that process for the jumping to death. We're going to do the exact same thing, and then we're going to do it one more time from crouching to death. With all of that set up, we actually need to create this isDead variable in our code now so that we can call upon it in this event graph over here. So let's compile this and save it for now, and now we're going to open up our code. So inside our character code, we can start in the header file and we're going to create a public variable here. And since we're going to need to access this public variable within a blueprint, this is going to need to be a uProperty. So we're going to create this uProperty here, and this is going to be blueprint read only, because we only want to read it. We don't want to adjust that value. And this is going to be a Boolean variable that we're going to call has been hit. And our default for this is going to be false, so we can declare that here as well. And then if we go into our C++ file, we can go and find where we're handling when our player gets hit. And that is, of course, in our aptly named handleHit function. We can add a final line at the bottom here that's going to put has been hit equal to true. So now we can save all of this and compile our changes. With the successful compile, we're ready to set up and grab that variable that we just created. So dragging off of our sequence here, we are going to call something called a cast, because we want to make sure that we are dealing with our dinosaur character. So let's cast to dino character. What do we want to cast? Well, we want to cast our pawn that we have. So if I zoom out so that we can see everything here, we are going to first drag this all the way to see if we can cast this object. And again, for readability, I'm going to double click right here and make this a little bit prettier. So now, if our owner is a dino character, well, what do we want to do? Well, if it fails, we're not going to do anything. But if we succeed, the next function that we're going to be calling in this chain is to set the isDead variable. And what is the isDead variable going to be equal to? Well, as a Dino character, I have access to a variable called hasBeenHit. And we want our isDead to be set to the same value of that variable we created in code called hasBeenHit. So now we can compile and save, and we have successfully finished our animation blueprint here. Let's close out of that, go back into our content folder, and open up our dinosaur blueprint now. Within this character blueprint, we now are going to set our animation class. We can see here that we have the animation mode that says use the animation blueprint. But we don't have an animation blueprint that's being used. So let's set one now. And that's of course going to be equal to the thing that we've been working so hard on, our dino anim. So now we can compile and save this. And let's go into our game. We can see now that when we crouch, we crouch. When we jump, and when we get hit, we T-pose dramatically. Everything seems to be in working order. That's awesome. Now, the only thing that might be a little awkward is if you think that the player's head is getting too close to that middle cube when it flies across the screen. I'll leave it up to you to readjust your spawners on the right-hand side to account for this height difference now that we know how tall our character is when we're crouching. We are nearing the end of this project. We only have a couple things left to do, and next time I'll be creating a simple scoreboard that is just going to count dramatically to give us our score, and we'll be using a widget to display that to our screen. So I'll see you there. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time.